Welcome back to another Purpose Served podcast episode. I'm your legendary host, as always, Darren Wingfield. And this podcast is simply about innovating and improving the human experience by you being the best version of yourself that you can possibly be in whatever it is that you're doing. Um, this has been a rough week. I had my tooth pulled a couple days ago. When I tell you I've been going through the worst pain of all time, the left side of my face has been throbbing. I'm talking about excruciating. Every time I drunk something hot, sugar, cold water, anything, it would trigger it. And if I was laying down, it was really over. So pretty much I had to learn how to sleep standing up, which is brutal as all hell. But everything's good. I went to the dentist. I let them do their work. Jesus Christ. But we on the other side of things. And also, I went to Orlando for the Pure Passion Sports showcase, which was like pretty dope. Really, really good experience, man. Being out there with Sean, somebody I talked about on this podcast, somebody that I brought on this podcast who was literally in the OG episodes. I'm talking about the first 10 episodes of this podcast. Somebody that still has had a significant impact on my life. And today I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about the people that has been on here and people that you guys haven't seen probably yet that had a significant impact on my life. Ever since I started doing Purpose Served. And Sean was one of those people. Now, I was in St. Cloud, Florida, in Orlando area. This was a couple of weeks ago. I want to say like 2 weeks ago. Everything was dope, man. Great workouts. The workouts is very, very tiring, but it was, I trained for it. The whole 3 months, even to this moment, I just been training to play basketball on a professional level. That's been like my main focus. How is that going to get done? Only time is going to tell. But just trusting God, man, trusting the man upstairs that this aspiration of mine will be accomplished at some point this year. Huge, huge deal, huge, huge challenge, but that's why I'm here. But while being out there, I just noticed that there was a strong community in, the facility where he has where he does his training at. And it's like one of those vibes where it's kids that's in elementary school all the way up to, professional level guys that's in there training, working with each other, hanging out with each other, getting to know each other. A very, very welcoming, like I said, community vibe there. I see it and the impact that he's having there in solving a huge problem with in sports in general. And this is along the lines of everywhere, especially like if you talk to an athlete, if you're not an athlete, or if you are an athlete, you know this firsthand. Politics. Certain kids in certain programs, they aren't able to maximize their full potential based off of the coaching staff that they have. Coaching staff that sees a certain thing and it has to be a certain way. And most often these kids got to be a shell of themselves while doing something that they enjoy. And through it all, from a freshman all the way to like a senior year, I'm talking about high school kids. By the time this kid get to high school, his senior year, he don't even want to play the sport anymore. She don't want to play the sport anymore. It's like the love of this game is like dead, And I talk to a lot of kids that's experiencing that right now, that have experienced that. And also, talking to Sean when I was out there and those kids that's experiencing that, and he creating something where he's solving that problem in itself, where he's creating a home where these kids can still nurture their skills. They can still nurture their aspirations. They can still nurture their dreams outside of their school, you know. And for me, that's very, very important. Kids are missing that mentorship. They're missing that guidance system to get them where they need to go. And if you're listening to this and you're a young adult coming up in the world, you have a huge, huge, huge part to play in society right now as we speak, due to the fact that times is changing rapidly. Our previous generations, like our parents, our grandparents, a lot of this stuff is new to them. A lot of this stuff is new to us. Times it wasn't like how it was when they were in their 20s, most likely, you know, in the 70s and the 80s or probably the 90s, or the 2000s. Times is different due to technology. Something that I talked about all the time, social media, which is like, you know, falls right under technology. Um, the cost of living is going up. It's just a lot going on, and it's a lot of changes going on, especially after 2020 and that shit show over here. That really, really, really sent people inward towards themselves, and a lot of people started to realize how incomplete they really were, how much was missing in their life on the outside and on the inside. And fast forward to 2023, you guys should see the trends that everything is going towards. It's like people are painting this picture of catastrophe literally brewing, you know. Now, do you want to be a part of that catastrophe and that part of that chaos, or do you want to be on that other side that's trying to create order within this madness, you know? And guys like Sean, it's a couple other people that I will be mentioning in this podcast that I've mentioned a gazillion times on here, that's on the opposite end of trying to create order within this madness and create a guidance system to help people find their way in some way, shape, or form, you know. And Sean was that for me. Without Sean, I talk about how Purpose Served would have never came about. And what he's doing, I tell him this all the time, is very important work. And he has to got to keep cultivating it. He's not going to stop, obviously, but I'm happy that I get to be a part of that system and be a part of other people systems that they got going on, you know, because it affected me very strongly, just as much as it probably affect everybody else that need those people, you know, the parents that need Sean's training for their kids, the games that he provide, referees that they get the whole basketball experience without it being taken away from a coach's agenda that they have for certain people, and whatever parents got their hand in a pot for, whatever they got going on. And for those of you that's looking to achieve things of like noteworthy success, you will have to go through that. You will reach points where it's going to be an uphill battle because of the people that's above you. They don't want you to keep climbing up. They're trying to, it's purposely meant to keep you where you're at. And jobs is meant for that. A lot of systems is in place for you to stay where you're at, to not think outside of that and to only think that you're capable of this and nothing more. And through doing Purpose Served, me personally, I learned so much about myself, and it has made me challenge myself a lot and push myself. I was already doing that to a certain degree, but it was all in the realm of basketball until I got in contact with Sean, and he made me see that the world was bigger than basketball. And everybody that I met following Sean, and this is going back to September of 2020, everybody that I met following after that, you know, pushed this narrative of me starting to understand how big the world actually is outside of where I stay and outside of what I do. And and started planting that seed that I wasn't what I did, and I convinced myself that I was what I do. And then another huge person and that impacted my life came about, and that was Grace. And Grace is a social worker, and she does meditation practices um, that involves breath work, um, visualization, journaling. Um, so is very versatile, and hers is centered around developing compassion for yourself and self love for yourself. And she was also on this podcast. If I haven't mentioned that already, and I remember fast forward 4 or 5 months of me starting Purpose Serve, starting a brand, and starting a podcast. I came across Grace. I seen what she was doing, and I'm like, yo, this would be dope to get her on a podcast to talk about the stuff that she's doing. And she came on the podcast. Great podcast episode, by the way. And ever since then, I personally started working with Grace all the way up until this moment. Every week, I talk about the hour that I give to myself, which is like difficult, as crazy as it sounds, to make time for myself. 1 hour to check in with myself a week. 60 minutes in a whole entire week. I try to make for myself to get myself grounded, get myself centered again, and check up on myself and make sure I'm all right. And Grace does a magnificent, excellent job of guiding me towards that and making me realize that I don't have to be too hard on myself because I'm a go-getter, man. I got such a go-getter attitude. I get in the points where I don't believe in rest. I get in the points where don't stop until the job is finished. A huge part of that comes from my muse that I talk about on here, Kobe Bryant, which which fuel which which gave me this idea in general. But Greece had a significant impact on my life with, developing, like I said, that self compassion, self love for myself, which gave me the ability in the long run to do that with others because this was something that I wasn't able to do. I was not a nice person. I really, really wasn't a nice person. I came to be a nice person, you know, but I really naturally wasn't. I talked about on here, I did almost everything transactionally. It was what can I get out of the situation? What can I get out of you? And how can I do that without giving anything of myself? It was natural. And until I noticed that things just kept backfiring on me as time went on, due to the fact I was just disingenuous to people around me. But most importantly, I was disingenuous to myself. And Grace helped me recognize a lot of that stuff and be so self-aware, and actively, you know, try to make myself whole. And that is not an easy thing to do. And it takes a lot of patience and accountability, and she's so helpful with that. Another person that I want to give a shout out to, in this podcast episode is Reagan. And I mentioned her, another person that was on this podcast so many times. I did my first speaking engagement through Reagan with the 20-something collective. And I've talked about the amazing spirit that she is, man. Very, very pure-hearted. And all of these people that I'm talking about, we all have the same vision of people maximizing their full potential. And, what I talked about on the beginning of this podcast episode of being the best version of themselves that they possibly can be. And it's not one outlet to do that. It's so many different outlets to go about doing that. And I met so many amazing people through Reagan herself. and what she's doing, what she did. Um, One of the people is Michael Settle, and I learned a lot from him too. And that dude is a go getter. You know, he sees something and he's going to go after it full fledged. And in fact, yo, shout out to him, Blaze training, man, and everything that he's doing. Look at this, man. One day you'll realize you should have never settled. Look at this. Look at this. This is his shirt. You know, he's a trainer. He's a businessman. He sells, his clothing. This man has hats, shirts, socks, sweatpants, all types of stuff, working with Puma. And he motivates me so much. And this dude is so helpful, man. And going back to Reagan, I got in contact. She connected us to. She's seen that we were very, very similar. And I think they went to the same college together. And we had the same similar story, but he played football, mine's was basketball, and chasing that dream, and that dream led him to starting his own business, starting his own company, and throughout the process, I'm seeing him set up shop in a mall. He sets up shop outside on a corner, and not only that, he has a very, very strong support system, and I'm blessed and fortunate enough to be, one of the ambassadors, brand ambassadors for him. And, I want Mike to be a brand ambassador for me as well, man. But he has schooled me with so much information. He's inspired me and motivated me. And cop his merch, man. Not go on his website. I'm going to put the link in the description below. But he has so much stuff, man, and it's fire, and the quality on the shirt is pretty good, man. But I believe in this, man. I live by it, to be quite honest. And when I first met him, got in contact with him, it was like, yo, I need to get this dude on the podcast, like 100%. And outside of my mom, he's the person that's been on my podcast twice, man. I've been able to get two great conversations out of him where he's dropping a lot of gems, man. Very, very smart dude, very intelligent. But we both got the same similar vision, and I'm seeing a growth in this dude, man, younger than me, and he's getting after it, man. This is one of those people where it feels like, yo, Daryl, you can't be resting, man. There's somebody out there getting after it. You got to get after it, man. But he's one of those people, and if it wasn't for Reagan, I would have never knew he existed, or vice versa, And without Purpose Served, I would have never knew these people were out here doing these things. It shifted my mind to start thinking in a certain way, start going in a certain direction, which was very, very unintended and unintentional by me. It's just crazy. I'm really sitting here just thinking about it. It's really, really nuts. I would have never ever, I couldn't have planned this out, and those two had a significant impact on me making it this far, and for that next level speaking engagement that I did for the 20-something collective, I created a 5-6-step system that I now, broke down to 5 on something that I use to this day, something that got me where I'm going with playing basketball, and something that I use to create a podcast. And just to give a little brief overview of that right now, it's just when it comes to setting a goal, right, and making sure this goal gets accomplished, I have this 5-step plan of action that ensues that you are taking action and sustaining the momentum to get this goal done. And the first one is having a destination for your goal, having an actual physical place for your goal. And the second one is determining the tools and resources to make sure you get to this destination. And once you do get to this destination, you do have what you need to fulfill the goal. And if we want to break this down into something where you can actually follow and use an example, what I used is literally my podcast. The destination for me was to have my first podcast episode uploaded in October of 2020, and I started mapping this out in September of 2020 when I started the brand. Thanks to another person, Steve Hayes, who made my logo for me and is my creative director. And he's behind the scenes cooking up a lot of ideas for me, helping me with so much stuff and setting the tone for a lot of things. As somebody that's very, very pivotal to this purpose served process that you guys don't even know about. But through him, the idea of a podcast won't come up. The amazing logo you guys wouldn't have seen. It would be completely different. But through Steve, I'm able to connect with you guys and connect with you guys all across the world, which I talk about all the time. All of these people that I'm talking about, I don't take any of this shit lightly. In fact, I take it very, very serious, And for y'all that's listening, I take y'all serious too. Without y'all, I wouldn't have an audience. I wouldn't have a platform. So for that, I'm truly, truly grateful to y'all. But it's still so much work that needs to be done, and there's still so much more that I have to provide to you guys. I owe it to you guys, But in September, going through the process of trying to create a podcast, I had no clue what I was doing due to the fact that I never created a podcast before. But I needed something to talk about successful people, how they became successful, and what can you do to be successful yourself in whatever endeavor that you're looking to do. Everybody's success looks different, but there's fundamental things to become successful. And it takes departing to somewhere. It takes going through an initiation phase, and it takes a returning. And I learned all of this from Joseph Campbell, a psychiatrist who wrote the book The Hero with a Thousand Faces, which I coin terms from this book all the time, pretty much damn near every single podcast episode. But going forward, through the 5-step system that I created with doing a podcast, the first one was just having it uploaded by my first podcast episode by October, and then determining tools and resources in step number 2, which is the camera, the audio equipment, GarageBand, Buzzsprout to have the file uploaded and being able to get it on Spotify, Apple Music, Overcast, Audible, all these different types of platforms. These are the tools that was at step number 2. Number 3 was determining the time to get this done. When was I actually going to do all of these things? When was I actually going to get these resources? That was very, very important. So once I put that date down that I was going to get it, start ordering the stuff like September, blah, blah, blah. The next step was how consistent was I going to be with producing these podcasts? Because just because you have, the materials and everything set in place, that doesn't mean that the thing is naturally going to cook up. You know what I mean? Just because you want a bowl of cereal and you got the cereal, you got the bowl, and you got the spoon, that doesn't mean that the cereal about to start making itself. This is a very, very simple example of what I'm talking about, but I had to put all of that stuff together, and that's essentially, pouring the cereal into the bowl, getting the milk, pouring the milk into the bowl, and then having a spoon and being all ready to go. I had to pretty much do that in a sense with setting up a podcast, and a lot of information that I seen online was not helpful in that regard with trying to set up an audio and a visual podcast that people can see my face as well, if need be, if they wanted to. I wanted to do that too. And the 5th step is if you don't reach the goal in a timely manner, go back to step number 2 and determine what it is that you need to adjust with, because it's most likely not the destination that's wrong, but it's the approach that you had that's wrong. So that's my 5-step program that I did as a presentation with Reagan with the next level event speaking engagement that I still practice to this day, and now it's something that I'm cooking and constructing to implement to you guys to set that up for whatever it is that you guys are trying to do, and it's a universal process. But it's something that I became conscious and aware of through Reagan offering that opportunity and looking at my boy Mike's presentation as well, and looking at his story and everything just gave me more inspiration and fuel to make my own presentation myself. And everybody that was a part of that group as well, from Hayden, so many other people, that we all had the same vision, but everybody's doing it in different ways, through coaching, through real estate investments, through being a social media influencer. It's just, I noticed that there's so many people doing so many things out here. And I was aware of that because I was stuck in my own little world, basketball. And I'm still stuck in the basketball world, to be quite honest, because I love the game so much. Is that love ain't going to ever go away. But through that, I met a great group of people. And through that, just furthering along the experience, my friends, one that I mentioned on here, Steve, also my boy Sean, artist, which fueled me to start looking into art. And Sahida, there's somebody that I had on here who's an amazing artist out of Virginia who creates linear art. Cassandra, that was on his podcast as well. She's from DC, makes beautiful, beautiful portraits from landscapes, people, all types of things that I also had on this podcast. I'm a huge, huge fan of their artwork, and which led me to go to an event, Pancakes and Booze, to give my friends, exposure to the art world and the art scene of people that's doing that same exact thing, where that's where I met Shahida, as a matter of fact, like looking at her art. And I actually, give me 1 second, I have an artwork in here somewhere. I gotta show it. Sorry about that, people. Forgive me. Yeah. This is it. Right here. Look at that. Beautiful. And it was one picture that I seen from her. It was very, very simple lines, right? And I could tell it was two people looking at each other, and it was like scrambled up top. And I asked her, what did that mean with those two people looking at each other? And as she told me that it's like how people are talking to each other and they're not communicating with each other, not trying to come to an understanding. They're just pretty much staying in their own realm, in their own head, and as you can see the chaos and the confusion within it. And also, these lines wasn't touching each other. These faces that was looking at each other, they were separate, but they were close. And I don't know why that resonated with me so much. And for me, at the moment, I've seen a lot of that in this world today, and that led me to start, talking to her about different artworks that I seen that she had, which led me to getting that piece right there. And she had an art show in Virginia that I was supposed to go to, but it was so much going on around that time, which I still owe it to her, to go see one of her art exhibits. You know, I want to so bad, but having her on a podcast and talking about her story and her journey, and where she came from, and it's a lot. You know what I mean? Coming from a different country, coming here, and just the whole culture shock. Being a single mom, all types of stuff. Also, well, not anymore, but married, but just the journey. You know, everybody got a really, really crazy journey. And just going back to what I said about, you know, with the hero's journey, there's a departure phase that I talk about all the time where somebody has to leave that place of the norm, the ordinary world, and go towards a world that's very, very unfamiliar. And through hearing these people's stories that I had on this podcast, you're gonna see that theme and that vibe a lot in the initiations that they had to go through in order to become the person that they are and bring that back, make that return back with whatever it is that they created and that threshold that they had to cross. I had to cross that threshold. The threshold, when I crossed it, I told you guys I was in a very, very dark place in my life. I was doing a lot of bad stuff that I don't really want to get into detail with, to be quite honest, and which led me to saying I have to leave. I had to leave, and I had to go towards my dream. And at the time, the opportunity to go to Spain, Girona, Spain, arose, and I took it. And I didn't tell anybody until like a couple of weeks of me leaving that I got a one-way ticket, and I wasn't coming back. Just to come back, you know what I mean, a couple months later and be doing the same exact thing, to be quite honest, you know. But that was the first threshold that I crossed to leave my ordinary world, to go to get initiated in this world that's very, very unfamiliar. And that's where you're going to find your challenges and all of that. And going back on a previous podcast episode about being an individual, this is where you find your true source of power. If you're strong enough and if you're willing enough to go wholeheartedly through the process, there's going to be points where it might destroy you, but don't let it permanently destroy you. Look at it as a purification process for you to better yourself, instead of looking at this as like, this might be the end of me. You know, I talk about how our potential is very, very scary to look at. Our raw potential is extremely scary to look at because you see how much you're capable of, but you don't know if you're up for the task. And I go through that on the daily, but I fight through that, you know. I fight through it every step of the way. And through that, like I said, I would not have met any of the amazing people that I just named, you know what I mean? And shout out to the people that I left off the list. Shout out to Dan, cool dude, man, who got to share his story on here with battling mental health and what he's doing right now. That's my boy, man, to the end. Much love to you. And Cece, she's doing great work. She's also a social worker as well. Shout out to my boy Mike, who was on a first original podcast episodes talking about spirituality, which is like such a huge thing to me, man. And he's out here, you know, serving his purpose. My boy Aqua. I want to give a shout out to my boy Aqua as well with Waves Entertainment. Him getting involved with music and uplifting underground artists, man. He got a strong movement going on. So much respect to him, man. And it's a lot of work that me and him, we got unfinished business that we have to do. Gerald, I see Gerald all the time, man, and he's getting to it. He's training. He has his own YouTube channel with fragrances and colognes, doing reviews on them, and it is jumping off. It's popping off, and this dude got mad wisdom within him, He's a go-getter as well. And I play basketball with him from time to time, and this dude drive is OD. He has a very similar story to my boy Michael. They both football players, man, and both have identical stories on that grind, doing what they had to do to play, at their college. And I have very impactful conversations with Gerald every single time I see him. Every single time I'm pretty much at the gym. We have very, very pivotal conversations that, are strong takeaways for me to just continue to serve my purpose. Keem, working with Keem at Planet Fitness, that is my guy, and he's out in California and he's doing his thing, man. Shout out to my boy. Who else on here that I failed to mention? I can't think. Purvis Ellison, #1 draft pick in the NBA, 1989. He blessed me with basketball opportunities as well, and he got to share his story on his podcast too. And there's way more people to come. And ultimately speaking, I made this podcast episode to show that life is a collaborative effort. You are a very, very important piece to the whole, but you have to realize the wholeness within yourself in order to make yourself fit into the bigger picture of life itself. You have something to contribute, there's no reason to feel worthless, like you're not good enough. You're more than capable. If you haven't heard it from anybody, well, you heard it from me. You feel me? That's very, very important. Be patient with yourself, and trust yourself. You're gonna get to wherever it is that you need to go, but it does take a collaborative effort. You are gonna need help from other people, but also with that, you will be held accountable for things, and that means you automatically won't be accepting responsibilities of yourself through other people, which you can't neglect, you can't ignore it, and you have to treat that with high importance in order for somebody to keep counting on you, And all of these people that I mentioned, they taught me that, something that was very, very unfamiliar to me. And without me doing Purpose Served, without me starting this brand, I would have never, ever known any of this. So get yourself out there, create a destination for yourself, create a goal for yourself, and use the 5 steps that I even talked about in this podcast episode to formulate a plan of action to guarantee that you're going to do the thing that you set out to do. Time is of the essence. You guys that's listening to this, especially if you're in a generation of, the millennials, and you're in between some really, really different, drastic, dynamic generations. Is night and day. And like I said, being a bridge between the two, we have to show the next generation that's coming up, that's in the next 20, 30, 40 years, that's going to be our future politicians, there's going to be our future lawyers, that's going to be our future doctors, that's going to be our future police officers, future nurses, future bus drivers, all of that, it's important for them to serve a purpose, you know what I mean? And that they're needed, instead of, I get like this whole thing with this, that everybody want to be a TikToker, entertainer, and all that stuff, but it's short-lived and it's no real impact and source within that, and you can easily be forgot about. But the whole point is not to be remembered. The whole point is to do something, like I said, that's going to be beneficial for the world, that's going to be beneficial for society, to improve or innovate this experience. And here at Purpose Served, the goal is to create products and services for you guys that's going to create an employment or educational opportunity, because that's going to be the most important thing. That's going to create order, within this chaos that we're headed to, dysfunction, and it's going to get crazy unless you have a certain amount of people that's going to buckle down and do what they got to do and make sure that we can live in peace. People think that that's impossible, man, but nothing's impossible. This brings me to the end of the podcast episode, and shout out to every single person that I named on this podcast today. Y'all are very important to me, you know, and the people that's listening, the people that's watching, y'all just as important as well, you know, and hopefully I can inspire you guys to act as soon as possible on whatever it is that's been weighing heavy on your heart, that's been weighing heavy in your mind, that you've been wanting to do, but you don't really know how to go about it. Reach out to me. You know, I'm full of ideas. I'm telling you guys this right now. I'm full of ideas. Also, listen, if you want a discount for any of the Never Settle Blaze Training gear, use the promo code Purpose Served on the Blaze Training website, and I'm going to be putting all of that in the description below to, you know, make sure you guys show your support to my boy Michael, man. He always showing me support, to be quite honest, but I want to return the favor to him. But yeah, this brings me to the end of the podcast episode. Serve your purpose, man. Treat the purpose as if it's the goal and take action towards it. That's the service part. Yeah, man. Last but not least, deuces. Yeah.